Good evening, everybody. The Biden White House desperation is intensifying. Biden begging President Trump to debate with the puppet president, who now realizes he's in very real danger of losing the presidency that should have never been his. Joe Biden has invoked executive privilege to block House Republicans from obtaining audio recordings of his interviews with special counsel Robert Hur over his handling of classified documents that should have never been in his possession. Biden disregarded over 250 years of constitutional executive privilege when he orchestrated the unprecedented raid on President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home to obtain presidential records that President Trump was allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act. House Republicans will now advance a contempt of Congress resolution against Attorney General Merrick Garland for his refusal to surrender those audio tapes from the special counsel. Meanwhile, financial records reveal Joe and Jill Biden are carrying $815,000 of personal debt. And turning to more Marxist lawlessness and disorder, Marxist Democrats are celebrating National Police Week the only way they know how, by siding with and exalting criminals. 148 Marxist Dems voted against a bill that would deport illegal aliens who attack police officers. Now, if you're not going to deport an illegal alien who attack police officers, who would you deport? That's the point. Marxist Dems are the party of anarchy and tyranny. Anarchy for criminals, tyranny for law-abiding citizens. The World Health Organization treaty that Biden is considering is a perfect example. The so-called pandemic accord would outsource our sovereignty to a corrupt international UN bureaucracy that subordinates itself to communist China. Last week, Congressman Tiffany of Wisconsin introduced legislation to stop Biden from bypassing Congress to enter the United States into this agreement, but not a treaty. But Tiffany wants a treaty. The World Health Organization utterly failing in its response to COVID-19, it was more concerned with covering for China's guilt than anything else. And now Biden wants to reward it with a treaty that would increase its power. It's total madness on the part of the Marxists. Congressman Tiffany joins us here now. Let's turn, if we may, first to President Biden refusing to give over to the Republican investigating committees Robert Hur's interview tapes. Your reaction?
Lou, breaking news. We just voted in the Judiciary Committee to forward to the full House that they must turn over the audio tapes. We voted to that effect, and now that goes before the full House to decide how the Speaker and our leadership is going to handle it. But the Judiciary Committee is saying that you have to send these audio recordings to the Oversight Committee.
And what is your expectation? That's a strong statement. The House vote, a narrow majority. Are you confident that the full House will vote as did the committee?
I sure hope so. I'm not going to predict that, as you said, Lou. It's a very narrow majority that we have, but I believe that the House should, in fact, I mean Democrats should too, but the House should require these audio tapes to come before us, and it's part of the evidentiary proceedings that go on with an impeachment inquiry. We're still in the inquiry phase. They should provide that documentation because it gives us additional information and, most importantly, the American public to be able to weigh what did Joe Biden actually say to Robert Hur? Not the transcripts written by somebody else, but what did he actually say? And I think those audio recordings are a really important part of the evidentiary proceedings.
Yeah, I certainly would agree with that. And going to the point of how fit is this president to be president? Robert Hur making it very clear that he thought that he was not even prosecutable because of his diminished capacity. Your reaction to to the special counsel's judgment?
So, it's not just fitness, Lou. It's also what was said. Because when we communicate with people, it's not just the words that are said, it's the cadence with which they're said, the pauses that are there. I mean, it's the vernacular that's used. I mean, there's all these things that are clues in communication as far as what a person is actually saying. That's why we want the audio tapes. We just want to be able to have what I would call a full communication backdrop that is given to us as a committee, rather than just having something that is transcribed. I mean, when you think about it, I believe the Biden White House since January 1st of this year, they've had 148 alterations that they've provided for statements that Joe Biden has made. Let's hear the raw audio to know what was actually said to Robert Hur.
Did you anticipate that you would see this kind of pushback from the White House on those audio tapes?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I think they're very fearful of how the president, first, what he says, but also how he says it. I mean, Lou, you see the presidential press conferences that go on, and I think the White House is very fearful because, I mean, think about it. If there was nothing there, Lou, if there was nothing to worry about, if there was nothing to hide, you provide that evidence.
Right.
But there's clearly, I think they're very concerned about what this is going to look like before the American public.
My guess is, Congressman, they're very worried about the whole enchilada. This president right now is not in a good way. That 15-second tape, videotape that they put out with the challenge from President Biden to President Trump, there were 7 edits in it. Think of that, 7 edits in order to get 15 seconds straight from this deeply troubled president. That doesn't look good, does it?
No, it doesn't. And they're very fearful of what this is going to look like before the American public. And, but, at the end of the day, that's not ultimately not the question. It is the American public should be able to see, or they should be able to hear in its raw form what he actually said to Robert Hur. Because Robert Hur, as you said, came back and said he's an elderly man with a poor memory. Okay, that's terrific. We appreciate Special Prosecutor Hur's opinion in regards to that, but let's let the American public be the ultimate decision makers. Put it before the American public. They will come to the right conclusion, I believe, when you give them full information.
And certainly the Congress of the United States should have a full picture of what is happening with this president, what his responses were to which questions, how faltering or how capable he was in responding. We think we understand what the likelihood is, but nonetheless, I mean, that should be the prerogative of Congress. And certainly in my view, I want to turn to the bill
Hey,
that.
Lou, could
Yes,
I add one
sure,
other thing? I want to add one
sure.
other thing here. This is also a real test for the Attorney General, Merrick Garland. Is he going to be the Biden White House's lackey, or is he going to do what he said in his confirmation hearing? I will provide justice for the American people without fear or favor. Is he
Mhm.
going to do that now, or is he going to do the bidding of the White House?
Well, I have a cynical response to that, Congressman, and that is that he's waited a long time to demonstrate that promise, to fulfill that promise, certainly to the American people. He has been as far as I'm concerned, purely a partisan hack throughout. Uh, I mean, if Eric Holder was Obama's wingman, uh, Merrick Garland has got the other wing covered, I assure you, for Joe Biden. What do you think?
That's clearly the case. But this is a great test for Merrick Garland. Are you going to be the president's wingman, or are you going to stand with Americans?
To then as I said, I'd like to turn now to your legislation to stop unilaterally what is happening with the World Health Organization and this crazy idea that somehow the United States government should turn over in a subordinate way to the World Health Organization the responsibilities of our public health agencies. I mean, that's deeply frightening.
Yeah, it's another effort to undo American sovereignty. We see it at the border. We see it in regards to energy. We see it in a variety of ways. And this is just another one of those things, turning over control of Americans' um, uh, health outcomes, healthcare in America. To turn that over to the WHO is one of the craziest things we've seen. But anyhow, I've authored a bill along with my home state senator, Ron Johnson, who no one was better than Senator Johnson during the whole COVID era. And it's the No WHO bill. And every Republican senator has signed on to the bill. Over 50 House representatives have signed on to
Yeah.
it. And what it does is it says it should be subject to a treaty. Any agreement that the Biden administration tries to strike with the WHO and the UN here over the next couple of weeks, and it's coming up here real soon, it should be subject to a treaty. And I think every member of Congress should sign on to that bill and make sure that this is subject to a treaty vote.
Isn't isn't it peculiar to you as you've been watching this and develop as you develop your legislation? I mean, it's crazy that it's gotten this far under this administration, under this president, no matter how incapacitated or impaired he may be cognitively, for it to get this far with this White House is to me a stunner. This should have been stopped from the moment of its proposition.
Yeah, so think about it, Lou. Now we know what the plan was when Hillary Clinton was running for president in 2016. We know very clearly what the plan was. This was going to be Barack Obama and the globalists' third term, and they were going to do the full transformation of America. It didn't happen. A guy named Donald Trump went and interceded and saved America for 4 years. Well, that's why they pulled out all the stops in 2020 to achieve their goal, and why they're going to pull out all the stops in 2024 to stop Donald Trump once again, because their view of the world, um, giving up American sovereignty, having the globalists run the world, this one world order, they are desperate to make that happen and they do it in so many different ways. The WHO is just part of the groups that want to make that happen, this one world order.
Congressman, as always, we learned something, and we thank you for being with us. We wish you the very best in blocking this effort on the part of the Marxist Dems Biden administration to tear away another rampart of our sovereignty. Congressman Tom Tiffany, thanks for being with us.
Lou, thanks for letting me share this information today.
Congressman, thank you. And turning now to pro Hamas protests, Spreading across college and university campuses, a group of radical pro-Palestinian activists seized control of an abandoned building at UC Berkeley. A spokesperson for Berkeley said these cretins were vandalizing an unsafe, fire-damaged building and created an active crime scene. Left-wing college administrators have no one to blame but themselves for scenes like this. Meanwhile, Sonoma State University President Mike Lee was suspended after he capitulated to pro-Hamas demands on campus. Lee agreed to divest and boycott Israel at the behest of protesters who established an encampment on campus 3 weeks ago. But the California State University System chancellor said Lee had no authority to make that decision, and so he's out, at least for now. The Communist Chinese appear to be backing the pro-Hamas insurgency that is wreaking havoc on college campuses across the country. This comes by way of a new report by the Network Contagion Research Institute, which points out at AstroTurf moments like Shut It Down Palestine, described as an anti-capitalist, anti-police, anti-government protest movement. My gosh, that report points to the Singham Network. It's a global web of organizations tied to Neville Roy Singham, an American-born tech mogul based in Shanghai, who's married to Jody Evans, who's the co-founder of the left-wing anti-war group Code Pink. They're quite a couple, believe me. Joining us now to take this up is the best-selling author of Blood Money, Why the Powerful Turn a Blind Eye While China Kills America. And now here is Peter Schweizer. And Peter, great to have you with us. I want to start with very simply, what do you make of these reports about the relationship between the CCP being linked to these pro-Hamas, anti-America demonstrations all across the country?
There's multitudes of evidence that show that that's exactly the case, Lou. There are two organizations in particular, one called the Party for Socialism and Liberation, PSL, the other one FRSO, Freedom Road Socialist Organization. These are two pro-CCP groups. They've pledged their allegiance to China. There are ties. There's even the flow of money from some sources in China. And these two organizations are at the center of the really disruptive protests, the ones on campus, the ones where they've shut down on the streets. So there's no question that this is part of what China's trying to do to sort of sow chaos in the United States.
This is really extraordinary because there hadn't been much discussion about this, but now to see, as a result of the report, to see that this is a direct connection, that it is extensive apparently, and aimed right at the stability of the United States during an election year. That's not an accident, is it?
No, it's not. And Lou, you nailed the point exactly right. These same two organizations, FRSO and PSL, were the ones that took those George Floyd protests and radicalized them. Initially it was concerns about the, police treatments of certain communities, and then it became defund the police. Then it became all cops are racist. These two organizations were at the center of it. They were the ones that started it off with the burning of the buildings in Minneapolis. If you remember that, the so-called mostly peaceful protests. And so these are the same organizations that have suddenly morphed into these pro-Hamas entities. They both are happening during election year. They're both being organized by these same groups, and these groups have ties and an allegiance to Beijing. That's something they declared a while ago, something that's been known, and something that has not changed. So, China's strategy is ultimately to try to disintegrate or fragment American society by pushing these sort of radical agendas, and this is one of the ways in which they're doing it.
And doing it so successfully. I think it's really important for people to also consider the idea that this is all happening, but without warning from either the FBI or any of the intelligence agencies. Should be, if anything, coming to us from the CIA, from the FBI, the National Security Division. But no, that isn't where it originates. It originates in a private organization doing great public service. why is the FBI and our government entities in the intelligence community, why aren't they on this right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, they talk in abstract about, the threat from China, the intelligence threat from China, but I reported on this problem in my book, Blood Money. The Anti-Defamation League, which certainly I think they do a lot of things that I would disagree with. They've called out these groups for their involvement in these protests and their ties for China. And there was a recent study at Rutgers University that explored and came to the same conclusions. And yet the FBI will not issue a report or a statement or a warning explaining who's actually behind these violent protests. Are there American radicals that are involved? Of course there are. But, the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, talked about the fact that there were outside agitators, outside groups and elements, some of them foreign-based, that were sort of ginning up this conflict. And that's exactly what these organizations are doing. The Biden administration has not called them out on it. The FBI has not done something about it. And to me, it's further evidence of the fact that we have elements in Washington that are frankly compromised by the CCP. They do not want to have this conversation.
They don't want to have the conversation that apparently extends to the FBI itself, their National Security Division. It also perhaps extends, without question, in the minds of many, to the President of the United States, who looks to be compromised almost entirely when it comes to the issue of communist China, whether it be in drawing down the strategic petroleum reserves, whether part of that oil ending up in communist China. This is a sorry note to end this conversation on, but the President of the United States looks as compromised as he can be. All of his policies seem to be very meant to comfort the CCP.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, as I've reported, as you've reported on, the Biden families received some $31 million from Chinese businessmen. They provided no discernible service or product for that money. I think we all know what's for sale there. And it comes perilously close to some of these issues. Why does he not want to talk about China's involvement in the fentanyl trade? Well, in 2017, the Biden family got a $5 million interest-free forgivable loan, which they've never repaid, from a Chinese businessman who is business partners with a Chinese criminal gang leader who set up the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico in the fentanyl trade. So there's no surprise that Joe Biden does not want to talk about China's involvement in the fentanyl trade. And even look at the recent law that passed banning TikTok, which I support, by the way. That bill passed. Everybody assumes the ban's coming. The president of the United States has to trigger that law. Joe Biden hasn't done that yet, and part of me believes that he's not going to do that because it would make his paymasters in China not very happy.
Peter Schweizer, best-selling author of the extraordinary book, Blood Money. As always, great to have you here and serving the national interest with every pronouncement. We appreciate it. Thanks so much, Peter.
Always good to be with you. Thanks, Lou.
The Biden administration not only tolerating China's dangerous meddling in the United States, it's now inviting as many foreigners as possible to come into the United States. The Biden regime is telling laid-off visa holders, don't worry, we're going to try to keep you in the country no matter what, even if you become unemployed. And in the nation's capital, we see another bag of cocaine found in a government building. This time, a white powdery substance was found in the headquarters of the Capitol Police. And now let's bring in a brilliant fellow, a PhD from Harvard, one of the best investigators in journalism. He's dedicated a big part of his career to studying JFK, the assassination of John F. Kennedy. He's the author of the new book, The Assassination of President John F. Kennedy, The Final Analysis. And with us today is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Great to have you with us, and congratulations on the book. I suspect, Jerome, that there are people saying, we already settled the Kennedy assassination story. Everyone who follows it knows that it's far from settled. Right. Your thoughts about what drove you to put together the conclusive chapter?
Well, the work is behind the book is by Dr. David Mantik, my co-author, and he is both a PhD in physics and he has an MD. He's a radiation oncologist. He's been looking at X-rays for cancer patients for over 4 decades. David Mantik has seen the JFK skull X-rays in the archives from the autopsy. There's 3 existing skull X-rays. He's seen them more than anyone else. And he's taken a densitometer, which is a scientific instrument, and he's done millimeter by millimeter measurements of the light coming through the X-rays, which gives a very precise and scientific CSI analysis of what the X-rays show. And what Dr. Mantik has shown over the last 3 decades is that all 3 of the JFK autopsy X-rays are fakes. They're altered. They're not the originals.
Mm-hmm.
And they were altered to mask evidence of frontal shots. There's clear evidence of 3 headshots in the skull X-rays, and 2 are from the front. One entered JFK right at the hairline at the right forehead, and you can actually see the trace of the bullet breaking up, going through the head. The largest fragment is at the back of the head. It has the most momentum. That's the way a frontal shot would occur. And that shot does not exit. It's absolutely clear evidence of a frontal shot. And the other frontal shot hit at the side of the head by the ear.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the entry point in the skull X-rays, and it blew out the back of JFK's head, which was obviously seen at Parkland. The third shot occurred from the back of the head at a low angle, and it blew out the front of the head. That occurred at 3:13 in the Zapruder film. The side shot here hit at about 3:31 in the Zapruder film. Less than 2 seconds afterwards, it threw the back into the left. So first Kennedy's head goes forward. You see blood and gore coming out the top. Then he's thrown violently back to the left by the shot that hit in the temple and blew out the back of his head. So none of the shots that hit Jack Kennedy in the head, none of the 3, came from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. So this is forensic evidence, crime scene analysis, that Lee Harvey Oswald was not the lone gun assassin. There were at least 3 assassins, one from the grassy knoll, one from the other side of Dealey Plaza at the railroad yard up above the triple underpass, and a third behind JFK at a low angle from the Daltex building, not Lee Harvey Oswald.
And that would be the shot fired presumably from actually the drainage outlet there on the street, on street level. Is that right?
Well, I'm not sure where it came from exactly, but I've always doubted that. I think it really was a shot from the grassy knoll. And there's smoke that can be seen in it. And the angle never seemed right to me from the drainage point. But the point is, what this book focuses on is the X-rays. So what we know definitively is that there was a shot to the side of the head, and it blew out the back of his head. Now, we don't try to identify who the shooters were or precisely where they were, but we know it was a shot from the grassy knoll. And that's enough to say the government's been lying to us for 60 years. I mean, as soon as the assassination occurred, the JFK limousine comes to Parkland Hospital. The Secret Service has got a bucket of water, and they're washing down the back seat with the gore from the shooting. They're altering a crime scene. The spectators see a puncture wound through the front windshield. It hit Jack Kennedy in the throat, frontal shot. They can see the back of the glass is all splintered, which happens when a bullet goes through safety glass. The Secret Service stops people from looking at the limousine. They don't want pictures taken of it. They get it out of there. And by Sunday of the weekend of the assassination, they have that windshield replaced in Deerfield, Michigan. And the body of JFK was put in a ceremonial casket. The coroner shows up, and the Justice of the Peace in Dallas, they say, this is a local murder. There's no federal crime to kill the president. We're going to do the autopsy. The Secret Service pull their guns, and they take the body, Jack Kennedy's body, in the ceremonial casket out of Dallas, Parkland Hospital at gunpoint. So again, from the very, very few first minutes, the government is involved in a cover-up. And when Lee Harvey Oswald is captured about an hour later, there's a worldwide bulletin that goes out giving his whole background. The CIA had it all prepared, saying he was ex-Marine and he had defected to Russia. This was a government coup d'etat.
And that being the case, and you say CIA, led by the CIA in your analysis.
Yes, I think CIA was one of the prime movers behind it, but it also had the military-industrial complex. You had Curtis LeMay, who was at the autopsy smoking a cigar. He had wanted to go to war with Russia in 1962 in the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's evidence that Curtis may even wanted a nuclear confrontation with Russia at that time. Kennedy wouldn't do it. He back-channeled with Khrushchev and solved the Cuban Missile Crisis by us removing our missiles from Turkey and Khrushchev removing the Soviet missiles from Cuba. Then Jack Kennedy had signed an order in October 1963, the month before he was killed, that we were going to pull out of Vietnam. And again, the military wanted desperately to go into Vietnam. So this intelligence military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about in his farewell speech has been in charge of the country at least since 1963.
Yeah, it's interesting to see some of the coincidences that are overlooked in the course of that period, whether it be the fact that the GM brothers were assassinated in Vietnam 20 days before the death of John F. Kennedy, his assassination. There was a lot happening, and in that time, people weren't connecting events as they can in retrospect, and is the advantage of history. But it's a remarkable period and a remarkable tale. And we encourage you to buy Jerome Corsi's book. It is The Assassination of President John F. Kennedy, The Final Analysis. We recommend it to you highly, as always. Thanks so much, Jerome Corsi, for being with us.
My great pleasure. Thank you, Lou.
Thanks to Jerome Corsi. And now here's another question. Is Prince Harry still on, and this is a question you really want to answer, is Prince Harry still on a special visa made just for royals? Well, the Daily Mail is reporting that Prince Harry could have entered the United States on a rare category of diplomatic visa and might still be using it. That, according to an immigration expert, this would mean he was not vetted by U.S. authorities for his past history of drug usage. And Jimmy Kimmel, he's going after his bosses, blasting those bosses over at Disney over a streaming service he calls a streaming pile of you-know-what. Kimmel said, quote, "Now finally our users can turn on their TV and get all the channels in one package for one price, all supported by ads. We call it basic cable, and it's going to blow your mind. We're consolidating. We're building one enormous ad-supported streaming pile of expletive," end quote. Meanwhile, the backlash against Kansas City Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker is rising. The NFL's DEI and inclusion officer distanced himself from the Christian kicker's recent remarks at a graduation commencement exercise, saying this, quote, "Harrison Butker gave a speech in his personal capacity. His views are not those of the NFL or as an organization. The NFL is steadfast in our commitment to inclusion, which only makes our league stronger," end quote. Now, you talk about a streaming pile of you-know-what. I mean, those are incredible remarks and just silly. Let's take a look.
Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people, it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice. He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic. This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it.
Butker eloquently putting forward his case, and the NFL suddenly feels so threatened by one man who eloquently expresses himself at a commencement exercise that they have to respond and to gin up an opposition from the fan base. The NFL feels the need to separate itself from mainstream Christians. You consider that perhaps the next time you tune into a game. If you're a Christian, the NFL doesn't think your views are legitimate. You think about that. Think about that. And think about why they are running this campaign from the NFL offices against one of their own players. What happened to freedom of speech, sports? I mean, Roger Goodell, come on, grow up. It's ridiculous. What is you let the NFL run things, I'll tell you, this country will be in a world of hurt. We're already in a world of hurt, but it'll be, well, exponentially worse. There are still good things going on in the world, a lot of good things, and that includes MyPillow products, thanks to Mike Lindell. And Mike has, as you know, a passion to help us all get the best sleep of our lives. After he invented the world's best pillow, he created the famous Giza Dream Sheets. They're the best sheets you will ever sleep on. My wife and I have been sleeping on them for years, and they are amazing. Your best night's sleep, though, just got even better. For a limited time, you will get a queen-size set of those sheets for $59.98. Think of that. Giza sheets for $59.98 and king size just $10 more. Those are the lowest prices in history. Mike and his MyPillow employees continue to be canceled by the big box stores, attacked by the national left-wing media. But Mike and all of the employees at MyPillow appreciate all of your great support during these sometimes tough times, and want to thank you by giving you free shipping on your entire order today. Free shipping on your entire order today. And to get the best specials ever, go to mypillow.com or call 800-977-9152 and use promo code Dobbs. You get the famous Giza Dream Sheets, queen size, $59.98, king size, $10 more. So call 800-977-9152 or go to mypillow.com, promo code Dobbs, that's Dobbs, to get your free shipping on your entire order today. And please join us each and every day for my podcast, The Great America Show. Well, turning now to those NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and all of their money ties to illegal aliens by the millions. My next guest says NGOs now serve as the official travel and logistics agencies of Homeland Security when it comes to illegal immigration. They're responsible for housing and moving the illegals, as well as trafficking children across America. Some of the heads of those NGOs earn over $500,000 a year, and you're paying for all of that. Joining us now is the author of Terrorists on the Border and in Our Country, former senior law enforcement advisor to the Secretary of Homeland Security. Our guest is Charles Marino. Charles, great to have you here. Congratulations on your book. I want to just tell everyone we recommend it to you highly. Folks, this is an important book, and it is one that I think everyone should be reading. It's great to have you with us, Charles. Let me start with, very simply, the country right now does not recognize the essential fact of our border, and that is that the President of the United States, I think he's illegitimate, but still the President of the United States, has turned over our southern border to the Mexican drug cartels. What do you think?
I think you're exactly right. Well said. Look, the Mexican cartels have been empowered like no time before in their history because of the Biden administration, because of their inept policies. And our country has become a much more dangerous place to live because of it.
And yet the response of, by the way, of both parties to me has been completely inadequate. There is no doubt about the millions of illegal immigrants who've come into this country, illegal aliens who've come into this country. It's just a number that the numbers that I believe are those suggested by a lot of the veterans of the Customs and Border Protection, and that puts the number somewhere around 14 to 15 million since the time Joe Biden has been in office. I want to get your sense of just how it is that we have permitted this to happen without any consequence whatsoever. None of our law enforcement agencies are doing their job because in some instances, including the Border Patrol, they can't.
No, that's exactly right. First of all, that 15 million number, I wholeheartedly agree with. It may actually be low when you put all the buckets together of encounters, gotaways, and then there's a third bucket, those that go completely undetected into the country. We'll never know those numbers. but will likely pay a consequence. Look, the Biden administration is the first administration in history to completely walk away from the federal responsibilities of securing the border and enforcing the immigration laws. We may not have agreed on how previous administrations went about doing it or to what extent they went about doing it, but this administration has just completely abandoned their responsibilities, which is why we've seen a state like Texas step up and have to fill that void. And because of the Biden policies, we've lost all deterrence. Deterrence around the globe is gone. We're an open country to anyone who wants to come in, 180 countries so far, many of them special interest locations where we know confirmed terrorist organizations still operate with a deep hatred for the West. And yet the Biden administration does nothing but encourage more illegal migration to the country.
And we are basically just sitting here waiting for the worst to happen because we can't secure this. We can't because this president refuses to secure that border. We're at the mercy of every terrorist organization, every actor, state actor that means us harm, whether it's Iran, you name the country, including, by the way, communist China. We look like patsies. We look like fools because we've got just exactly that for an administration.
No, that's right. And look, the Mexican cartels will work with whatever organization or country, state, non-state actors, as long as they pay the price to be trafficked. We see their closeness with the government of China when it comes to fentanyl poisoning of hundreds of thousands of Americans. Biden administration takes no action on that. We know the Mexican cartels are working with other state actors like Iran and other countries in the Middle East, and we know they're working with non-state actors like Hezbollah, Hamas, ISIS. They will bring any of those groups that I just mentioned across the border and into the country. Now, we know the country's already been infiltrated, Lou. We have so many examples of this. We know criminal aliens are making their way in because there's no possible way to vet them. And in some cases, even when we know it, they're still releasing them into the country. And we know those on the terrorist watch list have been able to roam around the country, the United States, for over a year before they are detected.
Charles Marino, we appreciate you being with us, and we recommend his book to you highly, folks. The book is it's straightforward. Terrorists on the border and in our country, and that is a major, major crisis. Charles, thanks for being with us. We wish you all the best of luck with the book. And again, folks, we recommend it to you highly. Charles Marino.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. And in Texas, a judge ordered Harris County to redo an election for a judicial seat there. Republican candidate Tammy Pierce successfully sued to challenge the narrow win of her Democratic opponent. Critically, the judge noted in the ruling that 1,430 illegal votes were cast in the race. 1,430. But we're assured that sort of thing never happens by our bettors all over the country, right? Meanwhile, an FBI special agent in charge instructed a subordinate to give his wife a cash bonus. He refused to comply with the Justice Department, yet the DOJ ultimately declined to prosecute him. And the special agent also gets to collect his pension for life. It is, you got to admit, it's a pretty nice job if you can be above the law and make a lot of money doing it, doing exactly as you please. And in culture war news, a federal appellate court sided with radical gender ideology over parental rights in Maryland. A group of Christian, Jewish, and Muslim parents wanted their children to be able to opt out of lessons that involve LGBTQ indoctrination. They argued it went against their religious beliefs. But U.S. Circuit Court Judge G. Stephen Agee was unconvinced, unpersuaded. He ruled that parents have no say in these matters just because it's their children. That's a dark spot in America when it comes to traditional families and traditional values. The judge should be removed forthwith from the bench. Turning now to this year's crucial battleground Senate races, one of them that could determine whether Republicans win control of the Senate is the Republican Nevada Senate race. Candidates Jeff Gunter and Sam Brown competing for former President Donald Trump's endorsement. And in an undercover interview, one of Brown's staffers suggests that he would side with the establishment over Trump. Watch this.
Captain Brown is very set on his values, and he's not. I mean, this man was a family man and didn't have to do what he didn't have to run for office.
Exactly.
Saw what was going on with this country and got off his ass. And let's take it into my own hands.
So respectful.
Yeah.
I prefer him. I would prefer a candidate that's going to stand more with the establishment.
Absolutely.
He'll do that. You think?
I 100%.
Okay. Because it's even if he votes against Trump, you kind of need that.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely you have to know where it's. I mean, you can't just follow somebody blindly. Right? You have to be able to, you have to be able to say no whenever you feel like it's where something is incorrect.
Right.
I think Sam.
Well, that's quite a dialogue they had over there on the Sam Brown side. So let's bring in Sam Brown's opponent, who's seeking the Republican nomination for the Senate in Nevada. He also served as ambassador to Iceland under President Trump. Ambassador Jeffrey Gunter, good to have you with us. And let me say that was quite a piece of sound. The folks want the establishment. Your reaction?
It's rhino speak. And luckily, we don't need to use Google Translate to understand what rhino speak is. And this is exactly what all of us put up in the Trump administration. The president had to put up with a lot of these guys in the first 2 years of his presidency, these rhinos who were not advancing the president's policy. Because after all, Lou, we all know that policy is personnel. And if you don't have the right personnel, you're not going to have the right policy. And sadly, my opponent, Sam Brown, Scam Brown, Captain Scam Brown, has been scamming voters in Nevada, trying to thread some needle that somehow he is supportive of Donald Trump on one side, and he is supportive of Mitch McConnell. On my side, I'm 110% pro-Trump. I was his U.S. ambassador in Iceland, and I don't thread needles when it comes to Donald J. Trump, the greatest president we've had since Abraham Lincoln. I drive Mack trucks through that hole, and I let everyone know that if you like 1% inflation, 3.5% unemployment, no endless wars, $100 billion in Ukraine, not having the Middle East on fire, you're a Donald Trump guy, and I'm a Donald Trump guy. And you just saw him for what he is. He's a swamp creature and a rhino.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that divide between the two of you. It's pretty stark. And the question I've got for you is, Mitch McConnell is one of the worst leaders in my opinion, in either party for some time. The leadership on Capitol Hill, whether it be the speakership in the House, whether it be the majority leader, one hopes it's a majority leader in the Senate. How important is that, and what do you bring to the enterprise to retake the Senate and assure Donald Trump's policies are both enacted and followed?
It's such a great question, Lou. Well, we saw what happened with the false impeachments during the Trump administration, and he got very little support from many people in the Senate. Why? Because they were Mitch people. We can also see what happens when you have a Senate majority leader there for 18 years like Mitch McConnell. Everything freezes, everything shuts down, and we're not able to carry out the work for the American people and really back up Donald Trump in his next term. So you're spot on. I would be up for term limits on Senate majority leaders. Let's limit it to 6 years and let's fresh people in there so we don't have people like Mitch McConnell who are shutting down the government and basically lining their pockets and living in the deep state DC elite swamp.
You know, that's an interesting idea, an interesting proposition to term limit the majority leader role. As a matter of fact, I have to say right now, I think that's something I could support, because to see these the hardening
Let's do it.
of. Well, if only we could, right? But we've got to get that darn Senate to go along with us. I want to turn to the economy right now. It looks like we're starting to see a real slowdown. We're starting to see a significant slowing in just about every sector. Your thoughts about how important it is to get President Trump back to assure that this economy is restored?
It's absolutely essential. We saw, like we talked about earlier, what he did when he was the president of the United States. 1% inflation, 3.5% unemployment. Now what do we see? We see 7 or 10% inflation. And basically what we're doing is we're just pumping more money into our economy, and money that we do not have. And when you have $6 chasing something instead of $5, guess what you get? You get inflation, Lou. And on top of it, why are we turning into an oil importer instead of being an oil exporter? When we were an oil exporter, the price of petroleum was way down. And guess what? We have inflation now. What a surprise. So when Donald J. Trump comes in, it's going to be drill, baby, drill. And when I'm the next U.S. Senator from Nevada, we also are going to be mine, baby, mine. We want to mine all the lithium that's here in Nevada. It'll provide great jobs. And as you well know, economic success is prosperity, it's democracy, and it unleashes the greatness in America.
Absolutely. And it's the foundation of national security as well. Ambassador, we appreciate it. Thank you for being with us. Jeffrey Gunter, and all the very best of luck. Appreciate you being with us.
God bless you, Lou. Thanks for all the greatness that you do for America, too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. God bless. And now something of a harrowing story that comes from the New York Post. And warning, this may be hard to watch. It comes from the Democrat-run city of New York. The New York Post shows wild video of a man sneaking up on a couple and trying to hit him. The man, wearing a medical boot on his right foot, threw the attacker on the ground, then pounded him, and the woman quickly joined in. The man, being beaten, desperately tries to escape, but the couple continue to just pummel him, dragging the dog along as they push and kick him. When you live in a lawless city like New York, this is what it comes to. Better arm yourselves, people. That's Biden's America, at least for another 5 months or so. Crime and chaos, inflation in all the Democrat-run cities. May everyone survive all of this, and including the inflation rate that President Biden says he inherited from Donald Trump. He lies about it, and he lies about it more. In a random act of journalism, the Washington Post so-called fact checker called out President Biden for his lies about inflation, particularly the one about being 9% when he came into office. But he was close. I mean, he was really close. He wasn't off by more than 400%. The Washington Post, to their credit, gave him 4 Pinocchios. That is as low as that snake's belly goes. It's just another sign the mainstream press is getting a little antsy and maybe disgusted with themselves as well as the Marxist Dems. We should all be on the lookout, I think, for what the Democrats do with a historically unpopular president whose re-election prospects are diminishing by the minute. It ought to be interesting. And before we go, I want to talk about a fantastic deal. Mike Lindell, as you know, is a passion to help us all get the best sleep of our lives. After he invented the world's best pillow, he created the famous Giza Dream Sheets. They're the best sheets you will ever sleep on. My wife and I will sign that promise. They're incredible. It's your best night's sleep ever. But it just got even better. For a limited time, you get a queen size set for $59.98. King size, just $10 more, and the lowest prices in history. Mike and the MyPillow employees continue to be canceled by big box stores and attacked by, big box media. They appreciate all of your great support during these times and want to thank you by giving you free shipping on your entire order today. To get the best specials ever, go to mypillow.com. Call 800-977-9152. Please use promo code Dobbs. That's DOBBS. You get the famous Giza Dream Sheets, queen size, $59.98, king size, just $10 more. So call 800-977-9152 or go to mypillow.com, promo code Dobbs to get free shipping on your entire order today. And join us each and every day for my podcast, The Great America Show. And thank you for being with us this evening. Join us here tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central. And coming up right after this, Mike Lindell's fantastic show, The Lindell Report. And good night. Thanks for being with us. God bless you, and God bless America.
Mike Lindell here, and like you, I see our country being destroyed daily. We face massive economic issues, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are people in power who threaten the values that have made our country great. Well, I've been a believer in gold and silver for a long time, and I've searched for years for a partner that shares my values. Well, Genesis Gold Group showed me how easy it is to protect your IRA, 401k, or your retirement with gold and silver. Their faith-driven approach to service and stewardship is one that stands out from the rest. So call Genesis Gold Group now at 1-800-200-GOLD. That's 1-800-200-4653, or go to LindellGoldRush.com now.
3 years ago, FrankSpeech.com was launched during the height of mass media censorship to give voices back to those who had their voices silenced. Today, we stand at the precipice of a new era, covering the most important presidential election in American history. An era defined by the battle for some of our most fundamental rights: freedom of speech, freedom of press, and secure elections. We at Frank Speech refuse to be silenced. We refuse to bow down to the forces that seek to dictate what we can and cannot say. We are the media now. Join us in this fight at FrankSpeech.com.
You might not want to hear what we're saying, but we're going to say it. I'm excited to announce we're having a huge MyPillow spring sale, and here's a few examples. Buy one of our MyPillow 2.0s, you get another MyPillow 2.0 absolutely free. Made with cooling technology, the best pillow ever just got even better. And this just in, 9 brand new colors and styles of our Percale bed sheets. They're made with the finest long staple cotton, and now you can save 50% or more. That's as low as $24.98. And for the first time this year, I'm bringing you our My Slippers and Sandals for as low as $25 a pair. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get your MyPillow 2.0s. Buy one, get one free. Percale sheets as low as $24.98. My Slippers and Sandals as low as $25 a pair. And for a limited time, when you order $75 or more, your entire order ships absolutely free.
The beef industry takes another blow as Cricket Burgers win America's best burger for the 4th year in a row. This comes after many major beef processing plants have shut their doors for good.
The beef industry continues to take a dive as cricket numbers skyrocket in demand. The insatiable insects have now overtaken cows as America's favorite animal. A market change that has even caused McDonald's to reevaluate
Cows are now protected species, which means they will no longer be seeing cows to be put on the endangered species list.
And here's why that might not be such a bad thing. Consider this. Cows are harmful to the environment.
Cows will go extinct.
Mike Lindell here, and like you, I see our country being destroyed daily. We face massive economic issues, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are people in power who threaten the values that have made our country great. Well, I've been a believer in gold and silver for a long time, and I've searched for years for a partner that shares my values.